Well, the scary thing about flak, to me, because I sat up in the nose, I sat up there and I saw what we were going into. And the pilot was put on a course, and that was where he had to stay on no matter what was in front of him. The navigator sat right behind me. His name was Katz. One shell went off so close you could feel it pounding in your ear, and I heard it go through the plane, and I didn't want to turn around. I got on the intercom, I said, "Katz, are you all right?" He says, "I think so." So then I turned around. Piece of flak took the seat of his pants right out. That's how close it was. He wrote a letter to his wife. "Hon, today God was with me." He said it was so close. And Katz was not a very religious man. He was that day.
You are about to embark upon the Great Crusade.
To meet this mounting aggression.
And make no mistake about it, good will prevail.
I was born in Queens, New York. Well, I was starting my first year in college in Cleveland, Tennessee, little Baptist school. My folks thought I should be a minister. It was funny. And a team came to the school to tell about the opportunities available if you joined the Air Force. And it appealed to me, and I was ready. I was going to finish the year out, and the war was getting, a little sticky, and I guess I was motivated to join. And the Air Force was the way I went. As a cadet, you started with regular Army training. So we went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri. From there, I went to what they called CTD, College Training Detachment. They told us we were going to go to college, where they started us with rudimentary math, add a column of figures, add 2 column of figures. From there, I went to Santa Ana, California, where I got my real training. I was given a choice. I could be either a bombardier or a navigator. I chose Bombardier school, but when I was finished, I had a dual MO. I also had a navigating. I could have done either one of them, but I think I was maybe a little bit of a coward. I didn't like the idea of being responsible to get you where you were going, because I got lost driving a car.
And what are the keys to being an effective bombardier?
I'd say being able to use both your hands at the same time, because you'd be controlling the scope and you'd be we flew the plane. The pilot, in fact, we called the pilot the chauffeur. He took us there and he brought us back. He'd say, "You've got it," and it was his job to keep the airspeed and the altitude exactly the same, because I had that all set in the bomb sight. And then there were 2 knobs for your right hand, would turn the plane in the direction you had to go with the crosshairs. And also, if you had a wind drift, it was a double knob. You hit 2 knobs, and you'd sit for the crabbing for the wind. It was a tremendous instrument. And then, of course, at the same time, you'd be adjusting the speed of the scope over here, and that was a double knob, and one of them adjusted the speed, and the other one placed the crosshairs. When you got those crosshairs on the target, and they were painted on the target, then they would automatically, you'd have set the dropping angle, and the scope had a piece that would come around, and when they both met, bombs would go away. When I went overseas, it was right after Christmas, and we left from Boston. We went by ship, but we went on the Ile-de-France, which is a converted liner, and it was so fast that they didn't go in convoy. They went by themselves with the one ship, and we had one big gun on the fantail, a small Navy crew, but that one big gun was worthless, I thought, especially if he was in front of you. And we got there pretty quick, and we landed in Scotland. I think it was called the Fifth, a crazy name. And as we came in, there were planes all over the sky, because the German submarine packs knew that we went in there. That was where a lot of shipping went. So they were constantly in the sky looking for submarines. And then we took these little tiny train cars, which were tiny to me, about 1/3 the size of our passenger cars, down to England to a town called Bassingbourn near Cambridge. The typical mission was they'd come in, they'd wake you up maybe 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, come on, fellas, get up, time to go. And we'd eat, and then we'd wind up in a conference room, and all of us would sit there, the navigator, the pilot, everyone, not the enlisted men, just the officers, and they'd critique us on the whole mission. They gave you a weather report, where the fronts were, and sometimes they'd say you may not get to finish this mission, you're going to have to turn around and come home, and it happened. But we left thoroughly briefed what the flak was going to be along the way, because they had information from all the guys coming back, given it to the computer, the guys who figured it out, and they tell you right where you were going to get flak, and they try to fly you between your route, so you would get through. It was comprehensive. It was really a very good critique that we got. Then there was one thing that was great about our Air Force. They had to tell you what the target was. If you didn't think it was a military target, and too many civilians were in danger, you could refuse to fly. I've never seen anyone refuse to fly. That I thought was great. And then, of course, you'd pick up your chutes and you go out to the plane. The bomb sight was already there. The bombs were already loaded. The pilot would make his rounds to be sure everything's okay, and then we would take off one after another. Now, the nice thing about off-plane, we could lose an engine on takeoff in a B-17 with a full bomb load, and still take off. Some of the other planes didn't have that much lift in their wings, and they could crash with a load of bombs. That was dangerous, to say the least. But it was very thorough the way they did it. Well, the first mission that we flew was like an indoctrination mission. And it was down the Ruhr Valley. Now, the Ruhr Valley was the central point of most of Germany's minerals and their factories. That Ruhr Valley was bad. And I think it was Jimmy Doolittle at the time had our squadron. And he sent us down at 10,000 feet on a visual day. Now, I'm a novice. I haven't flown in the combat at all, and I could hear the pilots, with maybe a few invectives, saying, "Blatt, 10,000 feet. What does he think he's go flying over Japan again?" And but I listened. I didn't get what they were talking about, but at 10,000 feet, the Germans, if they could see you, and it was a clear day, they were deadly. And the pilots had trouble keeping their plane at the right altitude. There was so much hitting them. The same speed, and it was, I'd say, the toughest mission I ever went on. Not because I was a neophyte, but after that, I could compare all to that, and that was a rough mission. But at the end of the day, you shrugged your shoulders, and you had to do it. I didn't see anyone with battle fatigue. I never saw any man refuse to fly.
What happened as you approached the target, leading up to the target? What were those moments like?
Well, I'd say when he said, the navigator would say to the pilot, "You've got it," and he'd say and he'd tell me that "You've got it." That meant that he was just going to adjust altitude and airspeed. That was his job. Now everything else is up to me to hit the target. In the beginning, I think I was a little tense, but after a while, you just want to do it. It's like anything. Repetition makes it easier. It's a cooperative flight. The pilot is keeping the altitude and the airspeed, which is essential. And then all I'm doing is steering the plane. I'm not making it go up and I'm not making it go down. I'm not influencing the speed of the plane. That's up to the pilot. So where the bombs are going to hit, to a large degree, determines upon the skill of the pilot. That's why you had lead pilots and you had lead bombardiers. They tried to pick the best and put them together. And that was the plane out in the front. And then you had an auxiliary. We had another bombardier in another plane doing the same thing you were doing in case you got shot down. Then he was supposed to take over. But he was supposed to be on the target at the same time you were. But he did not determine when the bombs would go away. The bomb site did. And I did because I was running a bomb site.
How difficult was it to fly in the German flak?
Well, the scary thing about flak, to me, because I sat up in the nose, I sat up there and I saw what we were going into. And the pilot was put on a course, and that was where he had to stay on no matter what was in front of him. The synthetic oil plants, oh boy, they protected them like mad because they had no oil. They put up a box. And they knew you had to fly through that box. So they just kept shooting it. They kept that box, and I'd look and I'd say, oh my goodness, we got to go through that. And you did. And I'd watch and you'd see maybe one plane peel off. And that didn't mean that maybe meant they lost an engine and they're going to head for home. But or they could have crashed. You didn't follow them down because you were interested in what you were going through. And you had to go through it. So what were you going to do about it? But I had one incident. The last mission I flew was into Berlin. And the target, they would not tell us what it was. They said, this is top secret. We can't tell you what you're going to buy. If you want to leave, if you don't want to fly it, get out and leave now. They could even stay and listen to the intelligence on it. Nobody dropped out. But we were coming up, they hit us with everything that day. So we knew this had to be something. So there was a box like that. We used to say you could walk on the flak. I don't think you could walk on this, but there are no holes in it. And I thought, oh, gee, we got it. And I'd see a plane go out, because I could see all the squadrons in front of me. And when we got there, it totally stopped. The only thing I can figure, we got by, it started. They probably loaded their guns in like a chute, and they had to stop to load their guns. We went through. It was a miracle. And then that was the only time I saw something that really stuck with me forever. And just as soon we don't talk about with that. I saw a death that was terrible to watch.
Yes, sir. How much damage did your plane sustain on the average mission?
Well, that's hard, pretty hard to say on the average. When we came home, the crew chief said go around to look at the whole plane. And check when anti-aircraft went off, when you were near it, it would break up in pieces like that. And it had a tendency to tumble. It was a rifle like a gun. And you could hear it if it was close. It would go, boop, 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 The son of our pilot wrote a history of the outhouse mouse, which was our plane. And I was flying on this mission. And our navigator sat right behind me. His name was Katz. One shell went off so close you could feel it pounding in your ear, and I heard it go through the plane, and I didn't want to turn around. I got on the intercom. I said, "Katz, are you all right?" He says, "I think so." So then I turned around. Piece of flak took the seat of his pants right out. That's how close it was.
It didn't hit him.
No, he wrote a letter, and in this book, the letter is published, and it says to his wife, "Hon, today God was with me." He said it was so close. And Katz was not a very religious man. He was that day.
Well, did you have fighter escorts like P-51s during your missions?
Well, thank God, by the time we got there, they had fighter. We did have coverage. Before we got there, the first people who were there had fighter coverage until they got to the channel. Then it was stopped. They couldn't go further. They didn't have the planes that had the mileage that could do it, and they just didn't. Then they developed the P-51, the P-47, and we had coverage all the way. And when we had coverage, we loved it. And then we had the P-38s that were flown. That was the Tuskegee Airmen. They were up, I think, in northern Italy, so they could fly right up there. And when we saw them, we were very, very happy.
What was your reaction when the war was over? How did you feel about all of it concluding?
Exhilarated. I mean, it was as if a weight was just taken off me, and I felt like I was floating. And I'll tell you, it was. I have to tell you the story leading up to it. All of a sudden, all the trucks were parked. They took the distributor caps off them, and all of a sudden there were military guards on all the airplanes, and we were all, what's happening? Well, they had signed the armistice, and to get they didn't want the guys some guy would get on a plane and want to go for a ride, he'd whoop-de-doo, you know, and to get to the mess hall, we had to walk across the parade ground. But some of the guys got to the planes, they got the very guns, you know, shoot red, you know, if there's a wounded on board, you shoot a thing in the air. And when you went out, you'd get out in the middle of the parade ground, and from all the buildings around there, they'd start shooting those things at you. Liquor came from somewhere, everybody celebrated. It was a great day.
If we could, tell me what you're most proud of about your service.
Now that's a hard question. It was something I felt I had to do, so I did it. And I'm no hero. I just did what they trained me to do, and I did it to the best of my ability. But let's say I'm satisfied with what I did. But to say, I was in that war, I don't feel that way. That was a necessity. It wasn't something I chose, it was something that we had to do.